My name is Emily Carter. I'm 32 years old, and last year, my world shattered. A car crash left me clinging to life in a coma, my body broken, my future uncertain. As I lay there, trapped in darkness, my parents, Richard and Margaret, stood by my hospital bed. Their words cut deeper than the crash. She's not our real daughter. We owe her nothing. They turned their backs, leaving me to die alone. That betrayal wasn't just a moment, it was the culmination of a lifetime of feeling invisible, unloved, and discarded by the family I tried so hard to please. But I didn't die. Against all odds, I survived, waking to a reality where my parents' cold indifference was laid bare. They thought I was gone, but I fought back. When they came sniffing around my grandmother's inheritance, I was ready. I left a letter in her house, a letter that exposed their lies, their neglect, and their ultimate betrayal. It wasn't just words on paper, it was my truth, my power, reclaimed. They thought they could erase me, but that letter turned their world upside down, just as they'd shattered mine. This is my story of revenge and redemption. If you've ever felt abandoned, unseen, or betrayed by those meant to love you, this story is for you. I know what it's like to crave acceptance from people who withhold it, to feel like you're screaming into a void. This scar on my temple isn't just from the crash, it's a mark of what I endured and overcame. My parents' rejection was meant to break me, but it forged something stronger. Stay with me to see how I took back my life, my legacy, and my truth. You might find a piece of your own strength in my journey. This isn't just about revenge, it's about rewriting your ending when the world expects you to fade. Hit that like button if you've ever had to fight to be seen. Subscribe and turn on notifications to follow my story, because what comes next will shock you even more. You won't believe what my parents did when they thought I wouldn't wake up, or how my sister reacted when the truth came out. Join me to discover how I turned pain into power and built a family that chose me. Share your story below, let's heal together. I grew up in what looked like the perfect American family, in a white colonial house with blue shutters, nestled in a quiet Boston suburb. The lawn was always manicured, the Christmas lights twinkled just right, and our family vacations to Disney World filled photo albums with smiles. From the outside, we were the picture of happiness. Richard, the sharp corporate lawyer, Margaret, the poised socialite, my younger sister, Lauren, now 30, and me, Emily Carter, 32, the dutiful daughter trying to fit in. But behind those polished photos, I was invisible. My parents poured their love into Lauren, their golden child, while I lingered in the shadows, yearning for their warmth. Lauren got the bigger bedroom, her name on every praise, her whims indulged. If she picked the restaurant for family night, it was her spirit shining. If I got straight A's, it was just expected, nothing special. I remember standing in our kitchen, watching Mom pin Lauren's crayon drawings to the fridge, while mine were tucked away in a drawer, forgotten. Lauren needs encouragement, Dad would say, his voice dismissive, as if my efforts didn't count. I was a puzzle piece that never quite fit their perfect picture. That house, with its pristine walls and hollow love, taught me early that appearances trumped truth in our family. I learned to smile for the camera, to play the role of the perfect daughter, even as I felt like an outsider in my own home. The weight of being unseen grew heavier each year, a quiet ache I carried alone. But it was only the beginning of a betrayal that would cut deeper than I could ever imagine. When I was 7, I learned what it meant to be the scapegoat. Lauren, always a whirlwind, was running through the living room, chasing some game only she understood. A crystal vase, Mom's pride and joy, toppled and shattered. I was there, reading quietly, but before I could think, I said, I did it. I don't know why, maybe I thought it would make Mom love me more. She stormed in, eyes blazing, and I braced for her anger. But later, I overheard her on the phone, her voice soft with pride, Emily's so eager to please, not like Lauren. Lauren has spirit. That word, spirit, became a knife. Lauren's tantrums in stores were spirited. Her refusal to eat vegetables was character. But when I did my homework without being asked, I was just dutiful, nothing more. My sacrifices went unnoticed, my quiet efforts uncelebrated. Lauren's B- in math got a family dinner, my straight A's got a nod, if that. I started to see the pattern. Lauren was the star, and I was the stagehand, existing to make her shine. I'd clean up her messes, literal and otherwise, hoping for a scrap of approval. But approval never came. Instead, I got lectures about being too serious, too focused on pleasing them. The truth was, I was desperate to belong, to feel like I mattered as much as Lauren did. Each time I took the blame, I thought it might close the gap between us. But it only widened, carving a hollow space in my heart. That moment with the vase wasn't just about broken glass, it was the first crack in my belief that I could ever be enough for them. By 10, the differences were undeniable. On my birthday, we sat around the dinner table, and Dad raised a glass to Lauren's soccer trophy, her grin lighting up the room. I'd won first place in the science fair that same day, my project on solar energy earning a ribbon I was so proud of. But no one mentioned it. Not a word. The silence stung worse than any scolding. That night, alone in my room, I opened a blank notebook and poured out my hurt. Why don't I belong? Why is Lauren enough, and I'm not? Journaling became my refuge, a place to untangle the confusion of being loved less. Each page held questions I couldn't ask aloud, fears I couldn't voice. Why did Lauren's artwork cover the fridge while mine gathered dust? Why did her tantrums earn laughs, while my hard work earned shrugs? I wrote about the times I overheard Mom praising Lauren's fire while calling me too quiet. I wrote about the ache of watching Dad cheer at Lauren's games, never once showing up for my debate meets. Those pages became my mirror, reflecting a truth I wasn't ready to face. I was different, and not in a way they valued. Journaling didn't fix the hurt, but it gave it a shape, a weight I could hold instead of letting it crush me. It was my way of surviving a family that saw me as an afterthought. I didn't know then that those words would later fuel my fight, that the pain I scribbled in the dark would one day help me reclaim my light. But at 10, all I knew was that I had to keep writing, keep questioning, to make sense of a love that always felt just out of reach. At 14, the truth I'd been chasing broke free in the worst way. It was past midnight, and I'd crept downstairs for water when I heard my parents arguing in the kitchen. Mom's voice was sharp. "You've always favored Lauren, Richard." Dad's reply was a low growl. "She's not yours either, Margaret. We agreed to treat Emily the same when we took her." My heart stopped. The glass slipped from my hand, shattering on the hardwood. Adopted. The word explained everything, my dark hair against their blonde, my green eyes against their blue, the way I never quite fit. I ran back to my room, pretending to sleep when Mom checked on me, but my mind raced. Why hadn't they told me? Why did they let me feel so wrong for so long? The next morning, I faced them at breakfast, my voice trembling. "I know I'm adopted." Dad's newspaper barely lowered. Mom's smile was tight, cold. "Don't be ridiculous, Emily. You must have been dreaming." Their denial was a gut punch, gaslighting me into doubting what I'd heard. They went on with their coffee and toast, as if my world hadn't just cracked open. I wanted them to explain, to reassure me I was still theirs, but they chose silence, protecting their perfect facade over my pain. That moment taught me their love was conditional, tied to a lie they wouldn't admit. I was their daughter on paper, but never in their hearts. The truth of my adoption wasn't just a revelation, it was a wound, one that would shape every choice I made, every battle I fought. I didn't know then that their lies were only the beginning, that their betrayal would one day push me to a reckoning they couldn't escape. The morning after I overheard my parents' argument, my heart pounded as I sat at the breakfast table, the word adopted echoing in my mind. I was 14, desperate for truth, so I blurted out, "I know I'm adopted." My voice shook, but I held their gaze, waiting for an explanation, for love to bridge the gap. Dad's newspaper barely twitched, he didn't even look up. Mom paused, coffee pot in hand, then gave me that tight, practiced smile that never reached her eyes. "Don't be ridiculous, Emily," she said, her tone clipped. "You must have been dreaming." The words landed like a slap, twisting my reality. I'd heard them confess I wasn't theirs, yet they denied it, gaslighting me into doubting my own ears. They went back to their toast and coffee, as if my world hadn't just fractured. I wanted them to hold me, to say I was still their daughter, but their silence screamed louder than any argument. That moment taught me their love was a performance, a facade to protect their perfect image, not me. I felt like a ghost in their house, seen only when it suited them. The truth I'd uncovered wasn't a key to belonging, it was a lock, sealing me out of their hearts. I learned to swallow my questions, to hide my pain, but the ache of their denial grew roots deep inside me. Their lies didn't just hurt, they reshaped me, fueling a quiet resolve to prove I was more than their secret. I didn't know then that this was only the start, that their betrayal would one day demand a reckoning I'd deliver with a letter they couldn't ignore. After that breakfast, I buried my pain and threw myself into being perfect, thinking maybe, just maybe, I could earn their love. I was a machine, straight A's, debate team captain, every award I could grab. By 18, I'd won a full scholarship to MIT, determined to show Richard and Margaret I was worthy. At 25, I started my own tech company, building AI tools that saved lives. But no matter how high I climbed, their eyes stayed distant, like I was a project they'd checked off, not a daughter they cherished. They'd smile for photos at my graduations, accept congratulations from friends, but their praise was hollow, their pride performative. I remember my MIT commencement, scanning the crowd for them, my cap and gown heavy with hope. They weren't there. Dad texted later, "Lauren's med school interview ran long. You'll understand, Emily." I didn't understand. I felt like a tenant in their lives, paying rent with achievements they barely noticed. Lauren's B- got a family dinner, my company's $1 million deal got a nod. I'd overhear Mom brag about Lauren's brilliance while calling me dutiful, like it was a lesser trait. Every milestone I hit, I thought, this will be enough. But it never was. Their love was a locked door, and I was pounding on it with degrees and deals, getting nowhere. Chasing perfection didn't win their hearts, it just showed me how conditional their care was. I was their daughter on paper, but never in spirit. That realization hardened something in me, a spark of defiance that would later ignite. I didn't know yet that their indifference was building toward a betrayal so cruel, it would force me to stop chasing and start fighting back. In the midst of my parents' coldness, my grandmother Evelyn was my sanctuary. Her Victorian house in Cambridge, filled with books, antiques, and the scent of cinnamon, was where I could breathe. Every summer from age 13, I'd escape there, away from Richard and Margaret's judgment. Evelyn saw me, really saw me. She'd sit me down with tea and say, "You have your mother's eyes, Emily," her voice soft but heavy with secrets. I'd ask, who was she, hoping for the truth about my birth mom, but Evelyn would pat my hand and say, "When you're older, dear." That promise kept slipping away, after college, after I started my company, always later. But her love wasn't delayed. She'd listen to my dreams, cheer my science projects, and tell me I was enough just as I was. Her home was a world where I wasn't compared to Lauren, where my dark hair and green eyes weren't a puzzle to solve. I'd curl up in her library, reading her old novels, feeling safe for the first time. Evelyn never gaslit me or dismissed my pain. She'd hug me tight, her lavender perfume grounding me, and whisper, "You're my girl." Those words carried me through years of feeling like an outsider. I clung to her hints about my birth mother, piecing together a shadow of a woman who'd loved me but couldn't keep me. Evelyn's refuge gave me strength to keep going, to believe I deserved more than my parents' scraps. I didn't know then that her love would outlast her, that her secrets would change everything. Her house, her words, her faith in me, they were the foundation for the fight I'd soon wage against the family who'd tried to erase me. 3 years ago, at 29, I sat at our Thanksgiving table, hoping for a moment of connection. My tech company had just secured major funding for an AI medical tool, a breakthrough I was proud of. Evelyn, frail but sharp, beamed across the table. I always knew Emily would do something special. Her words warmed me, but Mom's response was a cold splash. She's always been determined to prove herself. The dismissiveness stung, like my success was a flaw. Dad sipped his wine and added, "Most adopted kids overachieve. It's quite common." The casual confirmation of my adoption, after 15 years of their lies, hit like a thunderbolt. I froze, fork in hand, as the truth they'd gaslit me over spilled out so carelessly. "You've denied it my whole life," I said, my voice shaking. "Every time I asked, you made me feel crazy." Mom waved her hand, annoyed. "Most adopted kids would be grateful for what we've given you." Grateful? For a lifetime of feeling less than Lauren? For their conditional love? The room spun with 20 years of hurt, every overlooked achievement, every time I was sidelined for Lauren's spirit. Evelyn's hands slammed the table, her voice fierce. "Enough, Margaret." But it wasn't enough. I stood, napkin falling, and let it pour out. "You never wanted me. You wanted a prop for your perfect family, not a daughter." I walked out that night, cutting contact, vowing to stop begging for their love. That Thanksgiving wasn't just a fight, it was my breaking point. I didn't know then that their betrayal would sink even lower, that they'd abandon me when I needed them most. But that night, I took my first step toward a revenge born not of hate, but of truth. At 31, I was at the peak of my career, running my tech company in Cambridge, building AI tools that gave hope to patients. But one night, everything changed. It was late, past 10, and I was still at the office, tweaking code under fluorescent lights. My business partner, Jessica, texted me, "Go home, Emily. You're burning out." I laughed it off, promising I'd leave soon. The rain was relentless, hammering the windows, blurring the world outside. I finally packed up, grabbed my keys, and headed out into the storm. Driving down Maple Street, the world felt heavy. Years of chasing my parents' approval, of feeling like I'd never be enough, weighed on me. Then, at the intersection of Maple and 3rd, it happened. Headlights blinded me, too close, too fast. A drunk driver's truck slammed into my car, the impact a deafening roar of metal and glass. My sedan spun, flipped twice, and the world turned upside down. I remember the screech of tires, the crunch of steel, my body jerking against the seatbelt. Pain exploded in my chest, my head, then silence. Darkness swallowed me whole. I didn't know if I'd ever wake up, if I'd ever see another sunrise or hear Jessica's laugh. That moment wasn't just an accident, it was the prelude to a betrayal so cruel, it would redefine everything I thought I knew about family. My parents, Richard and Margaret, had spent years making me feel invisible, but what they did next was worse than neglect. It was abandonment, cold and calculated, driven by greed I hadn't seen coming. As I lay broken, fighting for life, they were already plotting, their voices haunting the edges of my fading consciousness. This crash didn't just shatter my body, it exposed the truth of their hearts, setting the stage for a revenge I'd craft from the ashes of their lies. The rain kept falling, indifferent, as my life hung by a thread, and their choice would change us all forever. I woke in a prison of my own body, trapped in a coma, unable to move, speak, or open my eyes. My mind was awake, a flickering flame in a void, but the world was muffled, distant. Doctors' voices drifted in, clinical and urgent, traumatic brain injury, fractured skull, broken ribs. Each breath was a knife in my chest, my body a map of pain I couldn't escape. I wanted to scream, to tell them I was still here, but I was locked inside, a ghost in my own skin. Then I heard them, my parents, Richard and Margaret, standing by my hospital bed. Their voices were sharp, not with worry, but calculation. Dad's tone was all business. What's the cost of keeping her like this? Mom cut in, her words ice cold. She's not our daughter, Richard. The adoption was informal, a favor. We owe her nothing. My heart, already battered, splintered. They weren't fighting for me, they were debating my worth, like I was a line item in their budget. They whispered about my grandmother Evelyn's estate, her Victorian house, her savings, as if my death would clear their path to it. If she doesn't pull through, Dad said, it simplifies things. Simplifies things. I was their daughter, raised in their home, and they were ready to let me die to secure an inheritance. They left, their footsteps fading, leaving me in that sterile room, alone with the beeping monitors and their betrayal. I clung to every sound, every fragment of hope, refusing to let their words be my end. Their abandonment wasn't just a rejection, it was a declaration that I was disposable, a burden they'd rather erase than save. But even in that darkness, a spark of defiance burned. I wasn't done fighting, not yet. Their greed, their lies, would face a reckoning, one I'd deliver with a truth they couldn't bury. That coma wasn't my end, it was the beginning of my fight back. In the suffocating silence of my coma, one voice became my anchor, Nurse Sarah. She was there every day, her presence a steady warmth in the cold sterility of the ICU. She'd talk to me, not knowing if I could hear, her words a lifeline pulling me back from the edge. You're a fighter, Emily, she'd say, her voice gentle but firm, as she adjusted my or checked my monitors. She'd tell me about her day, her cat's antics, or the sun setting over Boston Harbor. Those stories, small and human, gave me something to hold on to when despair threatened to swallow me. One night, during a sponge bath, she started humming, then softly sang Taylor Swift's Evermore. Her voice, raw and tender, wrapped around me like a blanket, easing the terror of being trapped in my body. I know you're in there, Emily, she whispered, pausing the song. Don't give up. Those words sank deep, reigniting a will I thought I'd lost. Sarah didn't know my story, didn't know about my parents' betrayal or the inheritance they coveted, but she treated me like I mattered, like my life was worth saving. Her care was a stark contrast to Richard and Margaret's abandonment, a reminder that strangers could show more love than family. I clung to her voice, her songs, her quiet encouragement, using them to tether myself to life. In my mind, I'd picture her face, imagine her kind eyes, and promise myself I'd thank her if I ever woke up. Sarah's belief in me fueled my defiance, a refusal to let my parents' greed win. She didn't just keep me alive, she gave me hope, a reason to fight through the pain and darkness. That hope became the foundation of my revenge, a determination to survive and expose the truth. Sarah's lifeline wasn't just her care, it was the spark that would one day set my parents' lives ablaze with a letter they couldn't ignore. As my parents walked away, plotting to claim Evelyn's estate, another voice broke through the haze of my coma, Jessica, my business partner and closest friend. She found me in that hospital bed, broken and abandoned, and refused to let me go. Her voice was raw, trembling with tears as she sat by my side, gripping my hand. Emily, you're not alone, she said, her words fierce despite the sobs. I'm here, and I'm not letting you slip away. Jessica didn't just promise, she acted. When the doctors said I needed urgent surgery to survive the next 24 hours, she authorized it, fighting through red tape and hospital bureaucracy. My parents had washed their hands of me, claiming I wasn't their responsibility, but Jessica stepped into the void they left, becoming my advocate, my family. She called lawyers, demanded answers, and made sure I got the care my parents denied me. I could hear her arguing with hospital staff, her voice steady even as it cracked. She's not just a patient, she's Emily Carter, and she's going to make it. Her belief in me was a fire, burning through the despair of my parents' betrayal. I didn't know then that Jessica was also protecting my company, fending off my parents' attempts to declare me incompetent to seize control. She was fighting a war on two fronts, for my life and my legacy, while I lay helpless, locked in silence. Every time she spoke to me, telling me about our team's progress or a new client, I felt a pull to return, to honor her faith in me. Jessica's fight wasn't just about saving my body, it was about saving my spirit, reminding me I was worth more than my parents' dismissal. Her loyalty, her love, gave me the strength to keep breathing, to plan a revenge born of truth. That letter I'd leave wasn't just for me, it was for Jessica, for everyone who chose me when my family didn't. Waking from the coma was no victory, it was the start of a grueling war with my own body. Every breath stabbed my fractured ribs, every movement sent pain searing through my skull. Physical therapy was torture, learning to walk again felt like climbing a mountain with broken legs. My first steps were shaky, my cane trembling under my weight, sweat mixing with tears as vertigo spun the room. I'd collapse, gasping, cursing the drunk driver, my parents, and the unfairness of it all. But giving up wasn't an option. Spite became my fuel, a burning refusal to let Richard and Margaret's betrayal define my end. They'd left me to die, already eyeing my grandmother's estate, and I'd be damned if I let them win. Nurse Sarah was there, her voice steady. "You did it, Emily." One step closer. Her encouragement was a lifeline, pulling me through the agony. Jessica, my business partner, fought a different battle, keeping my parents at bay as they tried to declare me incompetent to seize control of my company and Evelyn's assets. Their greed didn't rest, even as I lay broken. Each therapy session, each excruciating stretch, was a rebellion against their dismissal. I pictured their faces, smug and certain I'd never rise, and pushed harder. My body screamed, but my will roared louder. I wasn't just fighting for mobility, I was fighting for my life, my truth, my right to exist. Every scar, every bruise, became a badge of survival, proof I was more than their disposable daughter. The pain wasn't just physical, it was the weight of a lifetime of being unseen, now sharpened by their hospital abandonment. But pain can forge as much as it breaks, and mine was forging a resolve that would soon shake their world. This recovery wasn't just about walking again, it was about standing tall for the revenge I'd deliver, a truth they'd face in a letter that would unravel their lies. As I battled through recovery, a new piece of my story arrived, carried by Thomas, my grandmother Evelyn's attorney. He sat by my hospital bed, his face solemn, and handed me a letter sealed with her familiar cursive. My hands shook as I opened it, Evelyn's lavender scent rising from the pages, pulling me back to her Cambridge Victorian. Her words were a revelation, a gift from beyond the grave. She wrote of my birth mother, Caroline, her beloved niece, who died young, leaving me behind. Caroline was vibrant, kind, with my green eyes and a laugh Evelyn cherished. My adoption wasn't informal, as my parents claimed, it was legal, binding, documented. Evelyn had chosen them to raise me, believing they'd love me as their own. Her regret poured through the ink, she'd seen their favoritism, their coldness, and wished she'd taken me herself. The letter named me her heir, her Victorian house, her savings, her legacy, all mine by blood and by choice. My parents' lies, their claim that I was a favor they could discard, crumbled under Evelyn's truth. They'd abandoned me in that hospital, thinking they could steal what was rightfully mine, but Evelyn's letter was a shield, a sword, a map to justice. I clutched it, tears falling, not just for Caroline's loss or Evelyn's love, but for the clarity it gave me. I wasn't the outsider I'd felt all my life, I was wanted, loved, by women who'd fought for me in their own way. This truth shifted something deep inside, replacing shame with strength. My parents had built their lives on deception, but Evelyn's letter was my foundation, a truth they couldn't twist. I vowed to protect her legacy, to honor Caroline's memory, and to make Richard and Margaret face the daughter they tried to erase. That letter wasn't just words, it was the spark for a revenge crafted with precision, a reckoning I'd deliver in my own time, my own way. Recovery wasn't just about my body, it was about mending a heart broken by years of rejection. In therapy, I sat across from Dr. Morris, my voice raw as I admitted, I'm still chasing their love, even after they left me to die. She looked at me, her eyes kind but unflinching, and said, that's a wound you have to close yourself, Emily. Their love won't heal you, only you can. Those words hit hard, like a truth I'd known but feared to face. I'd spent my life begging for Richard and Margaret's approval, thinking their love would make me whole. But they'd shown their truth in that hospital room, and it was time to let go. I started small, honoring my birth mother, Caroline, whose story Evelyn's letter had given me. I installed a plaque in the garden of Evelyn's Victorian, a simple bronze marker reading, Caroline, forever loved. Kneeling there, touching the cool metal, I felt a connection, not just to her, but to myself. I wasn't just their discarded daughter, I was Caroline's legacy, Evelyn's heir, a woman with roots they couldn't uproot. Therapy helped me unravel the guilt I'd carried for not being enough for my parents, the shame of being adopted, the pain of Lauren's favored status. I wrote letters I'd never send, pouring out my anger, my grief, my forgiveness, not for them, but for me. Each session, each tear, was a step toward closing that wound. I began to see my scars, physical and emotional, not as flaws, but as proof of my survival. Healing wasn't about erasing the past, it was about reclaiming my present, my future. That garden plaque, those therapy hours, they were my rebellion against my parents' dismissal, a quiet vow to live for myself. This healing set the stage for my revenge, not born of hate, but of a truth I'd earned, a truth I'd soon force them to face with a letter that would shatter their lies. With Evelyn's letter in hand, I took control of what was mine. As I grew stronger, I moved to secure her Cambridge Victorian, the heart of her legacy. My parents had already started circling, their lawyers sniffing around, claiming I was unfit to inherit after the accident. But Evelyn's will was ironclad, and Thomas, her attorney, was relentless. I changed the locks on the house, each click a declaration that their greed wouldn't touch what Evelyn had entrusted to me. I installed security cameras, knowing they'd come, their entitlement as predictable as their betrayal. That house wasn't just brick and wood, it was Evelyn's love, Caroline's memory, my sanctuary. I walked its creaking floors, touching the bookshelves, the fireplace, feeling Evelyn's presence. This was where I'd been seen, where I'd been enough, and I'd protect it with everything I had. Jessica helped, managing my company as I focused on recovery, ensuring my parents couldn't exploit my absence. They'd tried to declare me incompetent, a move so brazen it fueled my resolve. But I was awake now, alive, and ready to fight. Securing the estate wasn't just legal, it was personal, a stand against every time they'd made me feel worthless. I pored over documents, met with lawyers, and built a case they couldn't crack. Every signature, every court filing, was a brick in the wall between me and their lies. I wasn't just saving a house, I was saving myself, my identity, my right to exist beyond their dismissal. This victory wasn't the end, it was the groundwork for a revenge that would expose them fully. I knew they'd come for the inheritance, expecting an empty house and a dead daughter. But I was ready, with a letter waiting to unravel their world. Securing my legacy was my first act of defiance, a promise that their betrayal wouldn't break me, it would build me into someone they'd never forget. I knew my parents would come for Evelyn's estate, their greed as certain as the sunrise. So I prepared a letter, not born of rage, but of clarity, a truth they couldn't twist. Sitting at my desk, still weak from recovery, I poured my life onto the page. I wrote of their neglect, how they favored Lauren while I faded into the background, how they gaslit me about my adoption, making me doubt my own reality. I detailed their hospital betrayal, their cold dismissal as I lay in a coma, she's not our daughter. We owe her nothing. Every word was deliberate, backed by evidence, hospital security footage, my adoption papers, Evelyn's letter naming me her heir. I didn't write to wound them, I wrote to free myself, to lay bare the family they pretended to be. I forgave them, not for their sake, but for mine, to shed the weight of their rejection. That forgiveness was my power, a choice they'd never understand. I sealed the letter, my hand steady, and placed it in Evelyn's Victorian house, on the dining room table where we'd shared so many hollow Thanksgivings. I knew they'd find it, expecting to claim a house they thought was theirs. The cameras I'd installed would capture their reaction, every flinch, every lie. This wasn't just a letter, it was a mirror, forcing them to face the parents they'd become. I'd spent my life chasing their love, but now I was done. This truth was my rebellion, my way of reclaiming the daughter they'd tried to erase. As I left the house, locking the door behind me, I felt a quiet strength. Their betrayal had broken me, but it also built me into someone who could stand tall and speak. This letter was the first step in a revenge, not of vengeance, but of justice, a truth that would unravel their world as they'd shattered mine. That Saturday, they came, just as I'd known they would. Richard, Margaret, and Lauren pulled up to Evelyn's Victorian, their entitlement practically radiating from the car. I watched on my phone, the security cameras streaming live, my heart pounding but steady. Richard tried his old key, his face twisting when it didn't work. "This is absurd," he muttered, already calling a locksmith, as if the house was his to command. Margaret stood by, arms crossed, her voice sharp. "I bet Emily's already emptied this place, taken everything of value." Her words dripped with disdain, as if I was the thief, not them, who'd plotted to steal my inheritance while I fought for my life. Lauren, trailing behind, snapped, "We're here for Dad's mementos, not to shop, Mom." Her tone was tense, a crack in the family's united front. The locksmith arrived, and they stepped inside, their footsteps echoing in the home where I'd once found refuge. In the dining room, they found my letter, centered on the mahogany table, its white envelope stark against the dark wood. Margaret's hand hesitated, then snatched it up, her eyes narrowing as she read my name on the front. "What's this nonsense?" she scoffed, tearing it open. Richard leaned in, his lawyer's instincts kicking in, but his face paled as they began to read. "This is outrageous," he barked, his voice rising, a mix of anger and fear. They weren't expecting me to fight back, to have evidence, to know their secrets. Lauren stood frozen, her eyes darting between them, sensing something was wrong. The air in that room grew heavy, charged with the weight of my words. They thought they'd walk into an empty house, claim what wasn't theirs, and leave unscathed. But my letter was a trap, not of malice, but of truth, forcing them to confront the family they'd built on lies. This moment wasn't just their arrival, it was the beginning of their unraveling, a reckoning I'd orchestrated from the ashes of their betrayal. As my parents read the letter, Lauren's curiosity turned to shock. She grabbed it from Margaret's trembling hands, her eyes scanning my words, my truth. The hospital footage, linked in the letter, played on her phone, my parents' voices clear. "She's not our daughter. We owe her nothing." Lauren's face crumpled, her breath catching. "You left her to die?" she whispered, her voice breaking with disbelief. Richard lunged for the phone, his face red. "It's out of context, Lauren. You don't understand." Margaret's voice was shrill. "We were under stress, protecting the family." But their excuses fell flat, lies crumbling under the weight of evidence. Lauren stepped back, clutching the letter, her eyes wet but fierce. "You lied about her adoption, neglected her, and then abandoned her in a coma?" She shook her head, as if seeing them for the first time. "What kind of parents are you?" The room went silent, their facade shattered. Lauren turned and stormed out, the door slamming behind her. Later, her text lit up my phone. "I failed you as a sister, Em. I'm so sorry. Can we talk?" Reading it, I felt a storm of emotions, vindication, heartbreak, a flicker of hope. Watching the footage, I saw Margaret slump, her face gray, while Richard paced, muttering about lawsuits. But Lauren's reaction was what hit me hardest. She'd been their golden child, blind to my pain, but now she saw the truth, raw and undeniable. My letter wasn't just for my parents, it was for her, too, a chance to choose who she'd be. Her awakening wasn't my victory, it was her own, a step toward breaking free from their lies. I'd spent years envying her, but now I saw her as a sister, not a rival, caught in the same toxic web. This moment wasn't the end of my revenge, it was the start of something new, a chance to rebuild with someone who finally saw me. The letter had done its work, exposing their betrayal and setting the stage for a justice I'd soon complete. Lauren and I met at a Cambridge cafe, the air thick with years of unspoken hurt. She looked at my scars, her eyes wet, and said, "You're my sister, Em." I didn't see their lies until now. Her voice cracked, heavy with guilt for the childhood she'd breezed through while I fought to be seen. "We're rebuilding, slowly, like two strangers learning to trust." That letter I left in Evelyn's house didn't just expose our parents, it woke Lauren up. She'd been their golden child, blind to my pain, but now she's choosing to stand by me. It's not easy, we stumble over old wounds, like the time she got the praise I craved, or how I envied her effortless place in their hearts. But we talk, raw and honest, peeling back the layers of a family built on lies. Richard and Margaret's betrayal, abandoning me in that hospital, chasing Evelyn's estate, shattered Lauren's trust in them, too. They tried to sue me for emotional distress, a desperate grab to save face, but the court dismissed it, their reputation crumbling. They fled to Florida, shadows of the perfect parents they pretended to be. Lauren stayed, moving into Evelyn's Victorian with me, its creaking floors now a home for our fragile bond. Each step we take together is a defiance of our parents' legacy, a choice to redefine family. This isn't the revenge I planned, it's better, a quiet victory of love over betrayal. Lauren's not just my sister by blood, she's my family by choice, and that's a truth stronger than any letter. Our journey's just beginning, but it's ours, built on honesty, not the lies that once tore us apart. Evelyn's house became more than a home, it was the cradle for my next fight. From the ashes of my coma, I poured my pain into purpose, creating Bridge App, a tool to help coma patients communicate through eye tracking. Every line of code was a rebellion against the silence I'd endured, trapped in my body while my parents walked away. I'd heard their voices dismissing me, plotting to steal Evelyn's estate, and I vowed no one else would feel that helpless. Bridge App was born from my scars, each feature shaped by the memory of Nurse Sarah's songs and Jessica's fierce advocacy. It's not just tech, it's hope, giving voice to those locked in darkness, like I was. My team at the company rallied, working late nights, driven by my story. We tested prototypes in Boston hospitals, watching patients blink out messages to loved ones, tears falling as families reconnected. That work healed me, too, turning my trauma into something bigger than my parents' betrayal. Richard and Margaret thought they could erase me, but Bridge App is my legacy, etched in lives saved, not lies told. Evelyn would have been proud, her Victorian, once my refuge, now hums with purpose, its library a hub for brainstorming sessions. Lauren helps, too, her medical knowledge sharpening the app's precision. This isn't revenge in the way they'd fear, it's creation, a refusal to let their greed define me. Bridge App is my answer to their dismissal, proof that I'm more than the daughter they abandoned. It's for every patient who feels unseen, every family fighting to hold on. My pain built a bridge, not just for me, but for countless others, and that's a victory they'll never touch. This is my truth, coded in light, shining brighter than their darkness ever could. Living in Evelyn's Victorian with Lauren, I found a peace I never thought possible. The house, with its high ceilings and warm wood, holds memories of Evelyn's love, Caroline's spirit, and now our new start. My scars, on my temple, in my heart, don't define me anymore, they're chapters in a story I've rewritten. My parents' betrayal, their hospital abandonment, their greedy grab for Evelyn's estate, all led me here, to a family I chose. Jessica, who fought for my life, Sarah, who sang me through the coma, Thomas, who guarded Evelyn's will, they're my kin, bound by loyalty, not blood. Last month, I hosted a dinner in the dining room where my letter once lay. Lauren brought her partner, a neurosurgeon, his laugh filling the space. We toasted, to family that chooses you. That night, fireflies danced outside, mirroring the hope in my chest. I'm mentoring foster kids now, sharing my story to help them feel seen, to know they're enough. Their wide eyes, their tentative smiles, remind me of the girl I was, journaling my pain, desperate to belong. I tell them what I wish I'd known: you can build your own family, your own light. This new beginning isn't just mine, it's a promise that pain can birth purpose. My revenge wasn't destroying Richard and Margaret, it was outliving their lies, thriving despite their betrayal. Bridge app, Lauren, this house, these kids, they're my legacy, not the inheritance my parents chased. I've closed the wound of their rejection, not with their love, but with my own. This is my truth: family isn't what you're born into, it's what you build, who stays when the world walks away. I'm not the daughter they discarded anymore. I'm Emily Carter, whole, unbroken, and ready for whatever comes next. This story, my crash, my parents' betrayal, the letter that exposed them, isn't just mine. It's for anyone who's felt discarded, unloved, or betrayed by those meant to hold them close. If you're out there, carrying wounds from family who chose others over you, know this: you can rewrite your ending. My revenge wasn't about sinking to Richard and Margaret's level, it was about rising above, building a life they couldn't touch. Bridge app, my bond with Lauren, my chosen family, they're proof that pain can forge something beautiful. I want you to find that, too. Share your story in the comments, let's heal together. Have you faced betrayal? Built a family from the ashes? Your voice matters. Hit like if this moved you, subscribe to join my journey, and turn on notifications for what's next, because I'm not done. I'll share how Bridge app grew, how I mentored kids, how Lauren and I keep rebuilding. You won't believe what we've overcome, or what's still ahead. This isn't just a story of revenge, it's a call to claim your worth, to find those who see you, to create a legacy stronger than any lie. My parents thought they could erase me, but I'm here, louder than ever, with a truth they can't silence. You can be, too. Let's inspire each other, lift each other up, show the world that betrayal doesn't break us, it builds us. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone fighting to be seen. Together, we're unstoppable, a family of survivors choosing love over loss. This is our new beginning, not defined by those who left, but by those who stay. I'm Emily Carter, and I'm rooting for you. Let's keep writing our stories, one truth at a time, until the world knows we're here to stay.